Hi, and welcome to Together, the podcast where we teach and guide you into the art and the daily practice of sacred relationship so that you can benefit from the felt sense of deeper love and connection with your partner. And just know that whenever you're listening to this episode or another episode and there's something that's coming up in the content that feels so good, but you want to go deeper and you want more intimate guidance, Courtney and I have created an online Together community where you get us, you get other couples doing this work, and so that you can really embody it in the day-to-day. All you got to do is scroll down in the show notes. There's going to be a link to our Together community. It'll take you to a page and you can hop in there. So in today's episode, we are going over this topic of beyond the blame game, finding balance in parenting together. This is such a big one we see with couples. And the three key points that we're going to be touching on today are why parents fight, different ingredients a mother and father bring, and co-parenting as a team. And you're going to want to make sure that you stick to the end because we are going to be sharing a bonus piece here of 3 agreements to go from conflict to co-parenting. Courtney, do you want to start us off in this first is in the gift that you always bring? Kind of orient us around this topic.
Yeah, so this is a big one. When I started doing couples work, I started to marvel at getting to see what common themes come up for almost every couple. And this is one of them, that when we're working with couples, guaranteed at some point, if they have children, this theme comes up. And it's often a theme that is sticky, that leads to lots of like fighting and disconnect and frustration. And how it shows up is that the mother is frustrated because she feels like the father isn't attuning enough, isn't being kind enough, and is being too harsh. And the father feels frustrated because he feels like the mother is being too lenient and just
smothering,
just doing whatever the child wants. What's fascinating about this is happens with every couple that has children, regardless of how soft the man is and how strong the feminine is, or how, they're all such different personalities, and yet it's still a theme. And then the other fascinating thing about this, because I just want to orient you all, I'm a social worker. I come from the world of radical social justice where we question these ideas of gender, And so it's been interesting for me working with couples and discovering that regardless of what you think about gender, regardless of how you make sense of all of that, there is something happening where there's a different experience happening for mothers and fathers. But this can also play out, in same-sex couples too. And we'll go into that a little bit as well. So just wanting to acknowledge that these are universal themes, and you can kind of find yourself in here however you identify your gender, however you feel about that. And whether it's socially constructed or not, or biological, this is something that's happening. This is something that's happening for couples. And so what shows up is couples fighting, and they're fighting about, do we need to be more firm? Do we need to have more rules? Or do we need to be softer and more understanding? And what happens is the parents start fighting. They're frustrated with each other. Both tend to feel unheard. Both tend to feel frustrated because they feel unheard, and also they feel frustrated because they feel like what is happening with the child isn't helpful. And inevitably, then the parents end up not really able to be on the same page. And then it creates disconnect. And then whatever the issue is that's arising for the child, whatever they're needing guidance around or holding around or, support around, ends up getting messy because the parents aren't able to kind of come in together in a unified way to hold them, and it turns into fighting. And inevitably, maybe one or both people start shutting down. They start trying not to find a way together. Maybe one of them is stronger and they just end up doing it one person's way and the other person gives up. But inevitably, both people are sad because they're actually wanting to do it together. Every couple we worked with, really, they're wanting to do it together, but they're having a really hard time finding how.
Yeah, there's a big ingredient I want to add there too is, there's the not feeling seen, and then there's a deeper layer where we've watched this with couples where the partner, in the uniqueness of the role that they bring, is the partner doesn't see it as valuable, they see it as the problem. So it's like what each parent and each partner is bringing in them, they're like, this is so valuable, and they're so proud and excited for doing the thing. And then the hurt of the rejection of like, that's the problem. And like and what can sneak in there too in the fighting is it can turn to shaming and criticizing. And what we talked about in the title here, it's like blame, you aren't doing it right. This is what's right.
And what I've found fascinating to kind of behold in the whole dance, because of course we know it in ourselves, but watching it from the outside there's a few things that tend to happen. One is that people will start to tell themselves a story. Well, I guess we don't have the same beliefs about parenting. Or, we have very different values. And so this is the kind of meaning that they start to apply. But when we're working with them often, that's actually not true. When we get to the roots of things, they can actually have the same kinds of values and the same desired outcome. But what they perceive as the way to get there is different. But there's this way that the second someone's bringing in a different ingredient, our mind will go, well, we're different, you're different, you don't see it the right way, there's no way through, or just accepting, like, I guess we're just really different people and we're never going to agree. And that is a common thing that can happen, but that story isn't helpful because with that story, there's actually no way through. There's no way to find a way together. And the thing is that Mike and I have very similar values. We have very similar ways that we want to raise our son. And in any given moment, we will have very different perspectives of what that means in this moment as to what we do. And so we just, that's one of the things that can really increase the disconnect and that we notice people struggling with is the minute we go into those stories. And there's an interesting thing that happens in couples where we will polarize each other too. And what this means is, if I'm a little more lenient and you're a little more strict, over time we'll start to polarize each other. Like Mike is so strict. Like he's so strict and Courtney, she never follows the boundaries and she's so lenient and she just lets Cedar do whatever he wants to do. And then pretty soon we've polarized each other so much that we can't see how much we actually have in common and how many moments maybe we are actually doing it in the same way because we've now polarized each other so much and created a story about, this is how Mike is and this is how Courtney is.
Yeah. And what's fascinating here too is it's ironic because in the relational ingredients and behaviors of polarizing, it actually manifests that outcome. Because, and I've watched it in our earlier journey, there's been the places where I have that story of Courtney just lets him do whatever. But
Not true. That will often be after I've held 50 boundaries and then Mike comes in and I'm having a moment and then he's like, oh, another boundary you're not holding. And I'm like, oh my God, I've held like 50 boundaries today.
So when that story was there in the past, part of that polarization, if I project onto you that that's true, what ends up happening is because I'm not holding you in reverence of your role and seeing the places where you do all the things and where you do have boundary, it actually does kind of create a bit of a flop and a shutdown of like, well, what ends up happening is so much energy goes into trying to process that disconnect in the partnership that it ends up actually being like, oh yeah, see, she's not doing anything. And I've watched the moments when I reflect back to how we do it now. I'm like, oh yeah, I was like unintentionally shutting you down, which would give me the evidence of, look, you're collapsed. You're, not that there wasn't collapse, but even more so. And then vice versa, where if I'm being perceived as being too strict or something, or having too many, guidelines, what it then ends up doing is that polarization. The stories about me make me more like reactive and a little bit more fiery, because I'm like, that's not the full truth. And then, you end up manifesting the evidence of, look, see, but it's not that's what's true, but it's the polarization in the stories about each other that ends up manifesting it. We are powerful creators, my friends, and it's wild that the stories that we are running, the scripts behind the scenes, actually does shape our reality.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember saying, Mike, I really need you to notice all the moments that I do hold a boundary. And then you were like, oh.
Which you had to repeat many times.
Many times. And it'd be like, I've been holding this for 7 hours, and then I let that one go, and then that's the one you noticed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I, just to be real, it took me a long time to let go of the story.
Yeah.
And we'll go into more juicier terrain of and there was a layer in there that we discovered in our differences, but we really had to be advocates, which we did really well. You advocated like, hey, man, I've held a lot of boundaries today, and then I'm really needing us to see them. I'm really needing us to see where I am holding it. And, and when I was in town, I had to do this, and Cedar did that. And then it's like, oh, and then that challenged my belief. And then I started to soften and to actually look for the evidence of the thing to challenge my story. And vice versa.
Yes. And, one of the things that also shapes, right, how we show up in parenting is how, we're going to go into the biology of mother, father, and what the differences are. But just to say, we're also shaped by how we were raised, right? And we're shaped by, how did our dad hold things? How did our mom hold things? What is our personality type? And all of that's going to show up in there. Yeah.
Oh, it's huge. And this is the wild part. This isn't just in the parenting. This is the partnership, the parenting, being a human being in this body. It's so worth repeating that we function from 95% of our subconscious mind, which most of that gets inlaid in the first 3 years of our existence. And then kind of into the 7, up to the 7 years, that's the hardware, the software that gives us the automatic stories when certain things are happening. And the whole point of having this podcast, this platform, the daily practice that we're in, Sacred Relationship, is challenging all that programming to actually be the chooser of what script do I want to be running? What's the program that I am wanting to develop from?
And, so yes. And so at the root of this, right, we just want you to understand that couples are spending so much time as parents feeding the story of difference, pointing the finger at each other, saying, he doesn't know the way that it's really needed, or she doesn't know the way that it's really needed. And they're spending time there. And they're spending so much time in that place and pinging that they're missing all these beautiful opportunities that could lead to greater connection, greater co-creativity, and, ultimately bringing together our two gifts to hold the child in a powerful way. And, I think of this as kind of like the root of what makes something sacred relationship is we're figuring out how to take two different ingredients and create a third thing that isn't either person. It's a third thing, and that's what we're doing on all levels. And that's what we're doing in parenting. And so it's not, the way through is not, oh, right, yeah, Mike was right, and we're just going to do it Mike's way. Or, oh, yeah, Courtney was right, we're going to do it Courtney's way. That's never the way. It's always something in the middle when both parts come together.
Yeah. And this is a good bridge, even from our last episode when we were talking about the sacred we. And this is just bringing it now into the parenting pieces. When we can go into that place of actually starting to understand the differences and start to see where there's a wisdom in the difference. And then how do we bring that into the parenting together? Something alchemizes, something different happens. It actually are like, those are the ingredients where, we've really noticed more of an allyship of like, oh, thanks for bringing that way in because my way is this. And yeah, it creates so much more softness.
And so the ingredients, the different ingredients that a mother and a father bring, and in this, we're going to go into the biological differences, not so much the socially conditioned differences, but what's wired in our biology, because understanding this really can help us in how we orient. And so much of the conflict is just literally like a lack of understanding these differences. And what I want to say is if you are a same-sex couple, you can feel into both of these, and you'll hear often the second parent who didn't give birth will have more of the orientation of the father that we're going to describe. So because a child comes from the mother's womb, it literally was inside of her body. That is the ultimate merge. Like the mother and the baby are merged, and the father or the second parent's energy is there and it's a part of it, but it's not quite as merged, right? It's like the next layer. It's the very next layer. And because mother is, gives birth, and then, breastfeeds, whether you breastfed or not, there's still the hormones of that, right? There's so many hormones that are released in women's bodies in that early time with baby, up to 3 years old, and when you're breastfeeding, there's oxytocin, there's all these hormones and the hormones that help you bond, because like bonding hormones, all of that creates a more emotional bond between mother and baby. And mother and baby are more merged. I remember this when Cedar started to be able to use words, or even before that, actually, I remember when I was with him and we were in a room with other people, it was like he was relating with Mike and he was relating with other people, but it was like I wasn't another person. He wasn't relating with me like I was another person. I was him. So he would relate with Mike, he would talk with people, and he wouldn't even treat me like I was a person because I'm not a person, I'm him. And I remember one day when he was like 2, we're walking down the trail, and his Aunt Zara, who cares for him a lot with us and for us, we're walking, and she said, well, that's your mama's body. And he said, that's not mama's body, that's my body. And it's like, totally, like in his experience, my body is his body, right? Like I'm his body. And there's this whole journey of separation. And so there's a few things that means, right? Just biologically. As a mom, you are going to notice all kinds of subtleties, all kinds of things about your child's emotional world that only a mother that is that merged and is in that kind of a hormonal experience and brain wiring is going to notice. Like when we go into giving birth and we're in that postnatal time and up until our child's like 5, we're in a different state in our brains. It's like we've got like different glasses on, and we are literally looking at our child completely differently than anybody else. And so what that means, and our amygdala gets turned on. So our amygdala is like, I got to keep this child alive. So we have way more awareness of danger. We have way more awareness of all the little subtle emotional changes our child has. And we're merged. They're like us. And so we feel it deeply. So what that means is, our child will feel more emotional when they're with us. So they will also feel themselves more emotionally. B, it means that it won't be as clear to us as the mama what I'm feeling and what our child's feeling. Over time we'll get clearer, but in a lot of ways it's merged. And that's how it's supposed to be. The mama is like the nest. It's like the nest of safety. The papa.
I want to add to that because
Yeah, please.
the word that's really helped me there is seeing the mama as the nurturer. Like there's that nesting energy. It's this place where the child as they're developing are meant to really, like, the second something happens, where's my mama? Like that's the healthy wiring of, like, I want to go to my nurturing, the role of mothers, the nurture, the giving the reassurance, giving the co-regulation. I've watched this with Cedar where, as he's been evolving, he's like, he needs to touch your body. He needs, he's been on this whole journey with, like, he needs to feel your breasts. He needs all these soothing mechanisms that's your body for him to help, like, land and integrate and move through it. And if he gets that, like that, then he shifts and then he can move out into the papa role.
Yeah, and just to add a little piece there, the sweetest thing was when I was weaning and he wasn't having breast milk as much. He would sit there and he'd go, "Where did my home go?"
Oh yeah.
And it was like, yeah, because like mama's body was was home, right? That's literally what it feels like in her body, right? Now, so then what happens is the mother is actually forming more of the emotional part of the brain, the right brain, the emotional side of the brain. The papa, or the second parent, who is a part of the field, even a papa who is so connected, so present, holding baby, co-regulating all the things, is just like a tiny bit removed. It's like they're like the next layer who's not as merged. They're the next layer that is attuning in there. And I've actually heard it described, I can't remember who said this, but they describe it as the father actually saves the child from the mother. Meaning, if it's just the mother and child, there's a place where they'll just stay in the soup. They'll just be in the soup, and they'll differentiate to a degree, but there will be a soupiness. And the father is the energy that comes in and like pulls the child out of the soup and says, "Hey, we're alive. We're in the world. Let's push our edges. Let's grow. Let's adventure." They even have shown that in the brain, a child will release more oxytocin when they're cuddling with mom, but then they'll release more oxytocin when they're playing with dad. So a child can cuddle with dad and won't release as much oxytocin as they do when they cuddle with mama. And they can play with mama and not release as much oxytocin as they do when they play with dad. Because dad is designed to come in there. And actually, just one more layer, and then I want to hear from you, Mike, around this, is the papa also becomes it actually forms the left brain. They actually help. Their interaction with the child forms the part of the brain that is more oriented to more logical thinking, rational thinking, not quite as emotional. It's like, this is what we're going to do because this is what's needed, and starts to form a little bit of like an emotional detachment in a way for the child.
Yeah, something that, in this piece that you're beautifully speaking to in the papa role, and how I've noticed it is there, and this is the orientation that I've learned from one of our mentors, Gordon Neufeld, is, this phrase of saving the child from mama, like this enmeshment in this journey of differentiation requires the different role of the father, of the papa. And what I've really enjoyed is it framed in this way. It's our job, our role as the father, to entice the child away from the mother, not pull. Because what I've watched with couples, what I've gone through my own journey, is that part gets activated in me. And I'm like, oh, I'll just pull the child away. Like, they're merged. They're not differentiating. Let's get them, out into life. And that desire of like just forcing it. It's not meant to be forced. It's meant to be guided or enticed or given, depending on the phase of development, is like inviting the child away to go adventure into life. And it was wild the first time I implemented this. It was just incredible. I remember you were standing at the door and, our son just like, he was just glued onto you. And you had to transition to work. And I was like in this place of, well, I know what my body wants to do. It just wants to grab him and kind of carry him off. And then I was like, okay, let's try this. Let's try the enticing. And then what's cool about this dance is it had me dig deep into my wisdom and get curious of how would I do that? I have to be so attuned to who our son actually is to even do it well, which is such a cool part of this dance. And then I remember I was like, oh yeah, he loves to play. He loves animal rides. And specifically at that time, he loved dragon rides. So I just looked at him. He looked so like there was no way. In my mind, I'm like, there's no way he's going to come with me. I just got down low to his level. I went down to my knees and I looked at him. I slowed down. I'm like, hey, buddy, do you want to do a dragon ride? And he kind of was just like still like, Mama. And then I was like, a dragon ride? Do you want to go? And he just kind of stopped, looked over, and he's like, yeah, dragon ride. And he just like ran over and jumped into my arms. I'm like, whoa, that's it. So like where the different roles can play out, but it requires like the learning how to do it in a way that's effective. Because what I've noticed, like in the other way around of like when, our son is needing some nurture and the care because he's been off adventuring so much with me, where there's a place where he just like sees his mama and he just goes running, just running, and then you scoop him up and then he gets to feel all his feelings about the adventures he's gone on. And the other pieces that I wanted to name here is like in this papa role, in this father role, you kind of already spoke to it, but I'll just touch it a bit more and I can feel it inside of my DNA. It's like, as he's nurtured so well by you and starts to really stay in contact and discover and evolve into his gifts, his desires, I get to notice what those are and bring him out to the environments for him to really push his edges in it. So he loves fishing. And so we're going out in the, it's been this journey, go out in the kayak, we're going to do the things. He loves wrestling. He loves, activities and sports outside. And so our role gets to be, let's bring our child out into life and let's encourage it and entice them into pushing their edges and building some tone and capacity to do hard things. With also the barometer, it's our job to be protecting them, ensuring that they're safe. So it's like noticing where it goes to, like noticing where that edge turns into now they're really scared. And it's noticing that and protecting their development, being like, yeah, we're going to slow down. Oh, you did so great. It's giving them the encouragement and the celebration, because I see this in all children. They just like want both their parents, but they really want their dad to be so proud of them and the thing that they're growing into. And it's such a special part of the role. And then also just teaching them how to be the structure in day-to-day life, how to be how to do. I notice he learns so much how to be with you, and a lot he studies how I do things. So he wants to come out, and when I'm chopping the wood, I want to go with Papa. I want to chop the wood. I want to help. I want to do this. I want to go while he's mowing the lawn. I want to go when he's doing that. And I watch him. He studies how I do it. And that really kind of activates all those places inside of him.
Yeah, it's so beautiful to watch how you hold that so well and how you figured out the dance of that and how much joy that brings him and how much beauty in himself, like confidence. And what I want to say is, just to like link this back, is so children need at the same time to be fierce, courageous, push their edges, learn how to do things by themselves, and be little and soft and vulnerable. And I remember when our somatic therapist, Clara, said to me, he gets to be both. He gets to 1 minute be the little boy who's like, I'm as strong as everything, and I'm so courageous. And then the next minute be like, I'm a baby and I need you to hold me.
I got hurt.
I got hurt. And like children need to be able to oscillate between those two places and get to be both. And they can share both parts with their parents, but also we're wired that with mama, I can go more into that part, the soft part, the vulnerable part that I got her. Every time I see him, he tells me all the different hurts he had, and then to go with papa and feel courageous. Now, what happens for lots of children, right, is the parents look at each other and think that they should be doing what they're doing. So if I, as the mother, am looking over at Mike and I'm thinking, you should be doing what I'm doing. Like, you're not being soft enough. You're not being, gentle enough. You're not being like, you're pushing him too much. And I start to project out that Mike should be doing what I do. So when Mike takes over, he now needs to be like me. Not only am I sending the message to Mike that his role doesn't have a place, but I'm actually sending the message to my child that part of him has nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. Like, because he actually needs both ingredients. Right. So I need to understand my role is to hold that and to be that place and to advocate for that. And equally, it's my role to learn and notice and celebrate and honor what Mike's role is. And, there were some experiences I had as a mom where at first, when we didn't fully understand all of this, and, Mike would come in as the father and he'd be like, I don't know why you guys are getting so emotional. He's not emotional like that when he's with me. And he was like thinking there was something wrong, And then I started to be like, oh my God, is there something wrong? And then it led us into like this exploration because he's like, he's not like that with me at all. But this is again where we can't compare, right? Because honestly, Mike relates with a child that is more courageous, that is more mature, that is more like it's a different child. If I get Cedar to do things, I'm met with a different set of emotions and that will be true of all children. And so this is why we can't project out that our partner should be parenting in the way we do, because our partner is actually holding a different ingredient and inviting a different part out in our children. And so we really need to get this, and we really need to get that we will never fully, like Mike will never fully be able to get what I'm seeing and feeling and sensing, because it's in my brain, it's in my hormones, it's in my bond with our son. And I will never fully get the impulses, the instincts that he's getting, because he has a different brain and different hormones and different setup, like he just innately is seeing things a little more removed and a little less emotionally. And just that will completely transform what he notices, how he makes sense of it, and it's not, neither one is right or wrong. They're actually, the child needs both at the same time.
And nature shows this. I don't know. I can't get this image out of my head. We watched this little YouTube short video where it showed the gorillas.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, nature shows how there really is just two different roles.
Yeah. Was it gorillas or little monkeys? Just some.
Yeah. I thought they were gorillas.
Yeah. But, okay, maybe.
And then the baby was breastfeeding on the mom, and the father had the baby by the head and was pulling her poor nipple.
I know.
Still latched on, and he was pulling her away, like pulling the baby away from the mother breastfeeding, and just like you could feel the energy of it.
And the baby was holding on with
dear
everything,
life.
He was not letting go.
So there's the primal version, and it's funny to have that image. If I can find the clip, I'm going to put it in the show notes because it's hilarious.
So funny.
And it's hilarious, but it's also helpful to bring in, because what I've noticed is we all have an animal part of us that does show up in parenting, and our job in Sacred Relationship is to soften those edges and bring our higher level of consciousness of how would I do this in a relational way? How would I do this in a together way? How do we kind of honor these different roles while like building out more care and attunement to the child, to each other? And it's important to name here too, like, we've described a lot of these different roles of the mother and the father and how we show up for the child. I love what you were sharing of your role in relationship to me. And what I've noticed is, like in this role of the father, there's this deeper layer of like, there's the child piece, but there's the like us piece. And you as the mother, um, it's my responsibility and role, and it took me a while to get this, to develop my emotional intelligence so that when you, from the nurturing role, attuning to the child, can reflect things back to me as the father. And this has been a big one. I see this with a lot of couples. We see this with a lot of couples, that the father needs to soften that animal part that's trying to physically tear the child away. We have to soften that. But I have to be able to hear what you're saying and really let it touch me, empathize with what you're saying, to initiate my different role, but to care what you're seeing because you're in that nurturing role. Generally the father's more in the disciplinarian role and more the improvising role. Like, let's go out on an adventure. So it's my job to develop emotional intelligence and maturity to hear what you're saying so I can respond to it versus react. And what I've found is the more we do this as fathers, we now have more tone, more safety inside of ourselves so that the mother can relax. And what's really cool about this is if that dance is happening, if there is tone and protection in here for the mother to soften and relax, she'll actually birth the healthy blueprint for humanity. And I've watched you do this so many times, where the safer you feel in our relationship, the more you'll have the space inside of yourself to have insights. And you'll be like, oh, I just had this insight with Cedar and with how we're parenting him. I think this is what's happening for him. And I'm like, whoa, that's so cool. And that makes so much sense in me. Yeah, totally. And then we get to be on this journey. And this is where the differences come together and create something so sacred and beautiful. It's intimate, where we become the allies and these adventurers out into this new way of parenting and consciousness of, oh my God, totally. Like, we've been missing Cedar in this way. And whoa, with you sharing that thing, whoa, I can feel my role in it and I can see your role in it. Let's try the new way.
Yes, this is the dance. And so just to say, this was our third point, right? Is what does it look like to co-parent? And what we're describing is it takes two things. One is both parents have to actually welcome and trust and know that their instinct is important, is valuable, and needed. And the second one is each partner has to accept and be aware that their partner's perception and intuition is important and needed. And so we have to simultaneously be able to bring forward what our instinct is while softening and receiving what our partner is reflecting to us. And it's actually in that dance that we're able to create the new way. That's how. And I know for me, and I watch this with so many women, even just this fact of, when you're a mother and you're doing everything to nurture and create safety, and then, you're going to pass your child off to a man. And I've heard so many of my sisters processing this. I'm going to hand my beloved baby to this man to care for. And in my mind, I want him to be sitting softly, and he's going to be like, hello, baby, I want to receive you, and I want to just go so slow with you. And instead, what ends up happening is the masculine comes in and he's like playing loud music and cooking in the kitchen and yeah, we're going to hang out and we're getting the shit done. And the mother's like, what? No, I wanted us to slow down and do it really soft and attuned together. And the masculine's like, no, we're moving energy. We're going. And the feminine can go into this oh, I don't want to leave my baby with you. And her mind can go you're not safe. You're not attuning, But actually you're handing your baby to someone who's going to bring in a different ingredient. And then your baby's going to come back to you to receive the ingredient that you have. And so that's just a small example. I have to work through that every time I leave Cedar with Mike. And Mike did such a good job being like, hey, I'm the papa. This is what we do. You give him to me. He goes through a little bit of emotions and then we're great. And we have so much fun and we're, and so I'm thinking, let's slow down and be in the trend. And Mike's like, yeah, let's go. And I'm like, okay. And this is a classic one. And, to be honest, one of the places that I struggled so much with Mike was, and this was we want to share our biggest alchemy of doing this work together. So, and this comes up for so many parents. This is the piece where we are trying to learn the art, of loving and nurturing our children with boundaries. And it can be hard to find the balance, right? It can be hard to find the balance of like space and love and nurture with firm, clear boundaries. And, for us, our toddler, very fiery, potent being, strong leader qualities, and where we have had to massage and massage and massage this process together was where Mike can be so good at coming in with the fierce boundaries, like, Cedar, no, we're doing this right now. And just like so clear, so fiery. But then I would be but then I would perceive like sometimes it was a little too harsh or like, but where's the warmth in it, And it was so triggering for me because I can get so triggered by boundaries like that, like fierce firmness. Like I was just like, oh my God, like, so mean. And just this ongoing journey for me of continually encouraging Mike, like to soften, while also at the same time continuing to acknowledge and validate and receive from him the boundaries that he was wanting to bring in. And that was a hard one for me. And that's a hard one for lots of women, because when we perceive the harshness, we can make the whole thing bad, But what is it that the masculine is seeing and feeling that I can't see? Because I'm so merged, I'm so in it with my child, I'm so in the soup of the emotions, I can't see very clearly what's needed. And Mike walks in the room and he's like, we need more clarity here. We need to know here. We need to move the energy, And
like a term, just to add there, like a term I've watched in that kind of soup of the mother before is where he starts spinning out. Like he's just in a loop and he's looping, spinning and looping in this thing where inside of me, I can feel an emergence of we need to shift the energy and experience to get out of the loop. And then we can go back to.
Mm-hmm. So I was, when Mike was advocating, like, Courtney, you need to get fiercer with your boundaries. You need to have more fierce boundaries. It was hard for me to receive because when he would sometimes intervene with Cedar, there was also like an edgy harshness in it.
Yeah.
So my work was to notice that and be like, yep, that was a little bit harsh. And I need to keep encouraging Mike to soften there. And still, but what is he seeing? What is he feeling? What's he noticing that I can't notice that I can receive? And really, Mike was really noticing that there was a place where I was not having enough boundary. I was not. And he just kept embodying it, kept embodying it, kept embodying it, kept embodying it.
Perseverance.
Over and over. Courtney, and I watch so many men that are trying to do this. Any of my sisters listening out there are so many men that are trying to deliver this message and the feminine is not getting it. They're not letting it in. They're not listening. And I just encourage you, listen, what are they noticing? They are noticing something. And for me, the more that I could hear the message Mike was saying, I started to realize, I actually can't embody the fierceness of the boundary on my own because I'm so merged and because of my own material from my childhood where I didn't get held in the way I was needing. It was either too harsh or too lenient, and I wasn't held with guidance. And I realized I need Mike to help me do this. And I started to let his nervous system show me how to be more firm. So instead of fighting him about it, realizing, I actually need the masculine to come in and show me how to do this. And that when I started to really receive him in that way, he was able to come in and start guiding, okay, in this moment, we're going to be more firm. We got to hold this. If he's going to cry for 40 minutes, we're just going to hold it for 40 minutes. And Courtney, you got to be more clear. You got to be more firm. And I could not hold it until I let Mike hold it with me. And so something I had been fighting actually was exactly the thing I needed. And what is so cool about this is we went through a huge portal of that, and I'll let Mike describe this a little bit to you. But as we moved through it, it healed my inner sense of structure and holding and receiving my own inner masculine of like, oh, that's how much fierceness is needed in some of these places for boundary that I, as the mother, was not able to hold at that point. And now I can. But when I found it, when Mike helped me find it, and he came in and was like, we need to boundary this, and I learned how to do it, it transformed my relationship with my son. Places where we were spending a lot of time in struggles, in like where he wasn't listening, and then it was like meltdowns and this kind of thing. By receiving Mike and letting him step in and me learning through him, now my son and I, he listens to me. He's feeling more held. He sinks into me more. And I couldn't have done that on my own. I needed my partner to come in and bring a different ingredient.
Yeah. And just to name, and I've watched this, if you want to speak to it, but from the seat of observing you, part of even being open to receiving that has been us practicing the place of dissolving the blame. Because when the blame is there's just that it feeds the defense strategy that feeds the story about how our partner's doing it wrong. But we really flexed hard to bring the fierce, firm, loving truth of our different vantage point of like I trust you and I love you, and I really sense like there's something that's really needed here. Mm-hmm. that needs to shift or change.
Yeah, you would acknowledge what I was like. That was so key both ways. Is you would first acknowledge my wisdom, what you saw I was doing really well, how safe Cedar felt. And I was doing a lot of acknowledging. I can see there's a boundary you're wanting to bring in. It's maybe a little too harsh, but I see you're wanting to bring something in that is important and needed. And it was when we could really keep acknowledging what the ingredient was we were both bringing, then we're both like, okay,
Yeah, because when we take out that blame, then it creates the relational ingredients for there to be more of a co-creation, mm-hmm. and where then we actually are co-parenting. And that's such an important piece, because there are so many places because of my conditioning in the program that's automatically running as a father where I was too harsh. It was too firm. And then like, I actually, my soul wants it. I need that. Oh yeah, a little softer. And that's just been actually really empowering for me to find that level of firm, loving banks, but soft, like the softness in it and not too harsh. And so in this example, that you're talking about, I remember the morning where I'm like, I'm going to dig so deep and support you as the mama to really feel this place. Because you had, just to name it, you had done a piece of your own personal work that helped you actually see, God, there is something that Mike has been inviting for a long time. And it's the boundary piece. I've been resisting it. I've been,
I was trying to do it.
You were trying to do
it in my nervous system.
But you were collapsing.
Yeah.
So just
and I was resisting what I perceived was your harshness. So there was those two things happening, and I was trying.
Yeah,
I was trying.
Yeah, you were trying so hard. So just to name, there part of what supported this was an actual supported piece of work that changed something in your nervous system.
Yes, was part of it.
It's just the name. This is something that happens in our communities. It's like pieces can come up, and we're there to support them so that something can actually change in the wiring. But in this one, you changed a bit of your wiring. And then I remember the morning, I'm like, oh, okay, great. There's an opening for me to really help her feel it. And I had the choice to keep working and just hear in the other room the spin out and, the loop that was happening. And I just tuned in and I'm like, what do I want to do here from this role of father? What's the choice here? To embody sacred relationship, this together way, what is it? It's like, yeah, drop work, less important. Like it's like go in and offer over these relational ingredients. And then when that shifts, huge win for the whole shared nervous system, the whole family. And so I dropped the work. I came into the living room and I just kind of came in slow, but very grounded. Like I felt so like deeply connected to my body. And I just kind of scooped you up on the couch and Cedar was kind of spinning out. And then I just held both the role, the kind of the orientation of the dynamic. And I remember just holding you and rubbing my hand on your leg and being like, hey, sweetie, like, hey, I'm right here. You got this. Just like breathe, look at me.
Because I was trying to hold a boundary with Cedar and he spent like 45 minutes resisting it.
Yeah. And so what I was doing, just to name in my world, I was trying to bring you into regulation and Cedar, like bringing regulation into the field and the dynamic, but tending to both, like both realities of what was happening in the loop or the spinning. And so like, hey, I'm right here. Lots of simple statements like, I'm right here. Can you look at me? Can you look into my eyes? Hey, it's all good. We can do this. You can do this. We got this. And then I would orient Cedar and I'd kind of bring in some firm, loving banks. I'm like, hey, buddy, like we're not going to do that. And this is what you can do. And hey, do you want to just kind of sit on her lap and look at me? Hey, buddy, I got you. You can feel all of that. So that's such an important piece is the soft power that you've initiated me in is like, you can feel all of that. Of course you're feeling that. And can you look at me? I love you. I'm right here. Mama and Papa are right here. And it was really that just repeated over, I don't know, maybe that was 5-10 minutes. And just, we've got you. Yeah, you're experiencing a lot of your life energy right now and you're so powerful and this is a no, but hey, look, let's just hang out here together. And then he settled, you settled, and then all of a sudden the storm was just, the clouds parted ways, the sun came shining through. And I was like, look, we did it. And then we both just got to feel the calm that happened. Like it seemed like a 10 down to a 1 in such a short period of time. And then it was like the aha. Oh, yeah, a bank was needed here.
Yeah. And really to name, like, I think this is where mamas need the papa because the mama and the baby are so in an emotional connection that for certain places to shift, we actually need the papa to come in who has a different energy. And so what I want to say to you mamas listening out there, the papa is trying to initiate in you and get you to see something that you need him for. How can you open to him? How can you get curious? What is it that I'm not able to embody in the same way that my partner is? And can I open to the alchemy of it?
Ugh.
And then, the flip was, right, for me was this, and continues to be this ongoing reflection for Mike of how to make his firm clarity more relational. And of course, as the feminine, we're always going to see that because we're programmed to notice the relational more. We were gatherers, in the way our biology was developed. We're gatherers, they're hunters. Hunters and gatherers are programmed different. So gatherers are more emotionally attuned to subtlety. Gatherers, the like speaking to things, orienting, tending to each other relationally matters more. For hunters, less words, more direct, more like mission focused. And so
I want to add a piece there too, because it's in the nurture, I've noticed so much planning. Like, and this is where I'm like, I've gone into pieces around it of like, Courtney's so good at planning, but I've watched this in so many couples. The feminine often is looking at way more steps ahead, but that's part of it. Because if you were to go out and gather and all the things, you need to know the route you're going. Where are the men? When are they coming back? So that you could go off onto this thing and do it well. Whereas the hunters are just more improvised moment to moment, like animal just went here and this is what we're going to do. So just like that.
Right.
Yeah. Planning versus improvisation.
So this is where we don't make our partner bad. We just understand they're different. And then instead of, Mike, he doesn't know how to be kind. He doesn't know how to attune to Cedar. That's where I could go. Oh, it's my job. I have this ingredient. I'm going to keep helping Mike soften. So, the one day, looking at Mike and saying, hey, Mike, when you're coming in with the fierceness, you can't deliver the fierceness till you've really deeply connected with Cedar. You got to look in his eyes. You got to build a connection. And then once you've built the connection, then deliver the fierceness, Or, earlier today, I'm like, hey, Mike, that like came across as a bit shamey. Could you soften that? And then Mike's like, Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Because he's just in the, hey, Cedar, why would you do that? Not practical. And Cedar's like, well, I'm 3. I don't know.
Yeah. And if the delivery stayed that way and you didn't intervene, that would kind of log as, oh no, what's wrong with me? I'm bad. And so it's so helpful to be initiated by those places, because what I've noticed is I want that feedback when the program just starts to run. Because what I've noticed in the other way is, if the softness is there and the connection's there, the direction in the firm bank happens with full choice and like stoke. Like he's excited to be like, yeah, Papa, because we're doing it together. If there's the connection, you've really awoken that in me, is then it's like, yeah, he's so stoked to be doing the thing with Papa, and like, yeah, we'll follow that bank, and like he can see benefit. But if it's harsh, it's just, then it creates the counter will and pushback and then internalized damage that I'd say we're all still massaging out of us as a culture.
And so I just, as the final thing of this point is, I hope you can hear that this isn't a perfect practice. This is a continual pinging between the two banks of the masculine bringing in more structure, the feminine bringing in more nurture. And it's an imperfect, constant sharing of information that is balancing out the child in the middle. And it's in both people's willingness to keep receiving each other and to still keep bringing their unique information, that's how we create the right ingredients for the child to be held by both. Mm-hmm. And the minute we get into who's right, who's wrong, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, you're the one that we're off path.
Missed the mark.
We missed the mark. So what are you needing to reflect back and invite in your partner, and how can you do it in a kinder, more relational way? And what is it that you are needing to receive from your partner in parenting that you can soften to and welcome and learn from?
Yeah. And this is the together way. And this is what we keep being initiated by, is seeing the fruits of that way. It's just it makes parenting easier. It makes relating in our relationship easier, because that's how it's always meant to be. Mm-hmm. And so if you've listened this far, here's the bonus juicy piece, is we want to give you something practical that you can actually work with in your partnership, in this parenting, co-parenting role. And it's 3 agreements. These 3 agreements, we really encourage, you can write these down. So if you can pause, the show right now, go grab a pen and paper and write these down so that you can really execute these. And we really encourage to invest the time and energy to sit down and do this with each other. This is changing the program, changing the wiring, bringing your voice to it. So the first agreement, before we go into, is there any pieces you wanted to add?
Well, just that agreements are helpful. This is a helpful thing to do. Any of these places, when you're not in the crunch, to make agreements about how we're going to handle the crunch next time. Yeah. And this is what we're inviting here. So you can take this and use this with anything, really. It's like Mike and I have so many agreements about what to do in different moments, so that when that moment arises, we've got the map of okay, Mike and I already agreed, and this is what we've agreed to. And then it helps. Huge.
Yeah, that's such an important piece.
Yeah.
From the resource, the non-triggered place.
Yes.
Building the agreement in then.
Yes.
And so this first agreement is, you can write this down. The first agreement is, I am willing and going to challenge the story I've been telling myself and the beliefs about my partner and their role. And I'm going to be open and curious to how the difference is valuable. Yeah. So that's the first one. If you need to rewind and write it down, go for it. This is really important. You want to share the second?
The second agreement is, I agree to share and assert what I perceive and feel. And this is an important one because for some of you, you're having a hard time receiving your partner. For others, you're actually not sharing. So you might think, oh, well, I don't want to fight. And, me and my partner see it different. So I'm not going to share. And so this is you agreeing that even if it looks like, oh my God, we see this so different, you're going to share. You're going to say it. This is what I'm seeing. This is how I see it.
And just to highlight, in this place, if you hit this agreement and you have a really hard time of sharing, or it's the words don't come out, or you're not telling the full truth, I'm going to put a link in the show notes. There's a previous episode called Kill the Nice Guy, Kill the Nice Girl. I want you to go listen to that one together. It's a really important one. And then so this brings us into agreement number 3. And this is sharing with your partner how you want to receive the reflection of where you're different in the parenting from your partner. So I agree to communicate how you want to receive the reflection.
So for example, Mike and I will say, okay, so Mike, I'm going to point out to you if I feel like you're being shamey, how do you want me to say that? And then Mike can say, I'd like you to say it. How would you want that?
Well, my example, almost in anything, this is in this example, but anything as a partner and a father, it's almost always, can you please share like a thing, 1 to 3 things of what I'm providing that's really great and that's really valuable first,
Right?
And then give me the feedback. That's not gonna fully fit if it's like in that shaming place. So just like,
but I could afterwards, like I have done that because I know that about you, is I'll say that and I'll be like, I did that out there. And then I followed up with, I really love how you're engaging Cedar and you're over there.
Yeah.
Like I said a bunch of really positive things because I know that about you.
Yeah. And then and another one that I like in there as an example, I would say, hey, in the future, can you reflect back to me that you can see that this place really matters to me and that I'm trying really hard.
Right.
And then I just like fall off the bus sometimes.
Yeah. Right. Like reassurance. Like, I know you're doing such a good job repatterning this. It was, reassurance.
And then also one that I love to add, and I shared this one actually this morning, is can you also share where we both do that, where we're working that one out, where we both can tend to do that? Then it feels more together.
And mine tends to be, I really need it said gently.
Yeah.
So when my agreement would be, you can say it, but I need you to say it gently. And then I'm like, yes, but if it's not said gently, then it's a lot harder for me to receive it.
And big important piece for all the ones in the role of the masculine in this place is not just saying it gently with words, but with the body language. It's so important. And I've learned this, for you to feel it, it means me moving towards, slowing down my movement, like making eye contact when I say it gently, not just saying the words, but I'm like half turned out into the other room and I'm like ready to walk away because the body's saying, well, are you even here? It doesn't land as gentle, even if it's said that way. So the full embodiment.
And for some of you, the agreement might be, I need to hear it in these exact words. Mm-hmm. I need you to say this exact sentence. And then that'll be our agreement, is like, that's what you're going to say. And then that's it. You're not going to say anything else. So how do you need your partner to deliver it to you? And get really clear about that. And then how does your partner want you to deliver it? And get clear about those two things. And then next time you're in that situation, you've made this agreement. You're doing this together. You're allies. And show up in that agreement. Yeah. And even, you know what? You might get a little triggered. Might be kind of uncomfortable. And you know what? The agreement is great because it's like, yep, but we agreed to this and we're being with the uncomfortableness.
And that's adulting in the together way.
Yeah. But I guarantee you, because it's an agreement, it will feel safer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So if this resonates, if you feel called, we'd love to just share a little bit more about our Together online couples community. We meet twice a month, and it's with other beautiful conscious couples who are in it. They're in the practice of sacred relationship. And, we just did a call this week, and I ran into one of the couples afterwards, and they were like, that was so amazing. That gathering is so amazing. It is worth 4 times, the amount of counseling. It's like 4 times more helpful than a counseling session, because not only is it, the guidance we're offering and the way that you're being held, but it's being in it with other couples. And, this couple was just, saying, it is so helpful to hear other couples, see them in the practice, realize how much we're all in it together, and it transforms so much. And Mike and I have been finding that too. It's really powerful to be in a space where there's other couples that are doing this work, because so often we're not in that kind of a space. And so we really encourage you, if you're feeling called, if you're feeling a pull, to follow up, read our sales page, tune into it. And, one of the things I just want to say, I've noticed that there's lots of women that feel called, and I notice there can be some resistance for men. What I want to say is that the men in this group are men. They're like everyday guys. They're, men that are working with their hands, and they're, this isn't, everybody in the group isn't like a yogi who's meditating every day. And I think that's important to say, because sometimes I think that can be maybe what some of the hesitancy can be for men. And no, we're like real people in the world, in the muck, in the beauty, in all of it. And we would love to have you join.
Yeah. And then aside from the calls, in between those calls, there's a whole online platform where we put in guided meditations, like actual embodied, meditations that you can start to integrate. We put in journal prompts, and we add challenges in there, and there's a whole community on the platform to engage with. And that's what we have found has really allowed it to integrate even deeper. So if you're still listening to this, my sense is you're probably interested. Follow that, that gut punch or that heart hit, and scroll down in the show notes. There's a link to our community there, and that'll help you hop into the community. We'd love to see you there. Thank you. Oh, and if you're also still listening and you got something out of this that was valuable that you're going to take home, or from any of our other episodes, please do us a favor. We're on this trajectory to reach 100,000 followers with this platform. And the way that helps that happen is the ratings, the comments, the shares. So please go give this a 5-star rating. We would be so grateful. Until next time.